Right, today I want to talk about the modular system that has been created by Sig Sauer, and the modular system for specifically the P320, and in this case it's 9mm. I'm going to show you a few frames and explain some assembly, and then later explain how you can improve your trigger action. This frame is the subcompact in black, obviously, for the 9mm, and you'll note that there is a rail on here, and that I have also put on a particular tactile grip. Let's contrast this with a subcompact frame. The subcompact frame is different. It still takes the same magazine size. However, there's no rail here. This happens to be a small, and I'm not sure, a small handle. I'm not sure if Sig creates anything other than a small for the subcompact. It also has a set of talon tactile grips on here. Let's take a look at the differences in the upper, the slide and the barrel. Here's the slide and barrel system for the compact or carry. Place those in front for a second. So once again, we have the barrel. That's a 9mm. This is the standard spring, recoil spring that comes with it. I want you to note this end, because this end is circular, it's round, and that's going to be important. And here's the entire slide. This is metal, of course, and this is the slide for the compact model, or carry, designated by the letter C. Continuing, we have the upper for the subcompact. The slide, which is noticeably shorter, and this one happens to have some Cerakote on it, and it's in a green or drab green. Here's the barrel, noticeably shorter. Let's do a comparison, and here's the difference between the two barrels. Subcompact, compact barrel. The spring for the subcompact, and let's see how that compares to the spring for the compact. And they're pretty close in size. Obviously the subcompact is a little bit smaller, but there's something major difference. There is a major difference with this subcompact spring, and you need to know what this is, and I'll show you. And that is the end, because this end fits correctly only one way. Otherwise, you will not be able to pull back the slide to the locking position. Let's take a look now at the fire control system. And this is the part that has the serial number on it. The serial number is on the side, and therefore this is the part that must be registered. All other parts in many jurisdictions can be sold directly without any licensing or any other involvement, governmental involvement, with the sale or purchase of that. However, this part is going to be a regulated part, and it's interchangeable. I've taken the liberty of removing the trigger spring. The trigger spring extends into this hole here, and underneath there is another hole, and the spring assembly looks like this, and it fits in place like this as well in here, and then it hooks. I'm not going to hook it right now. It takes a little bit of effort to do that. I've seen people do it with their hands. I can't do it with my hands. I have to use a pair of bent needle nose pliers to get that in, and I do have an extra trigger spring. So the idea behind the exchange kit, or the exchange caliper, is that you can take a frame such as this, such as the compact, and you can take the subcompact with a new upper, new barrel, new spring, new recoil spring that is, and switch them out. So this unit, the fire control unit, fits perfectly in the compact and also in the subcompact. The problem is, try to find these units online, and they're virtually impossible to find. I won't say impossible, but it's not easy to find. Sig has some, but they're out of stock in some. And the problem is, to make this transition, to buy a kit for the 250, the P250, they were originally retailing at around 300. Sig has upped the ante significantly, so a kit consisting of the items that I've already mentioned retails at a cost of $399. That's quite a bit to pay. I wasn't able to find one. I did it the hard way. I did it piecemeal. So I was able to buy this frame for about $45. It's under $50. And you really don't need, this is the magazine, and this is goes a 15-shot magazine, 15-round magazine, and this goes into the compact model, but it also fits into the subcompact model, and I'll show you that later, with an adapter piece. And that adapter piece, unfortunately, is not very good, but it does work. It's about $15 to $16. So to find these is difficult. I ended up going on eBay, and I found an entire used upper mechanism, and it consisted of everything that I needed. However, it was about $300. Then to have it Cerakoted by my dealer, that was another $75, but I thought the end product looked really good. Let's take a look at those in 1 minute. Before we go on to look at final products, let's take a look at what we can do to enhance the mechanism, the trigger mechanism, and make it work better. And it's really not, there's not much risk involved here at all. You need to look at the friction points, and those are fairly easy to find. This is an Apex trigger, which is a straight trigger, about $50, a little bit more than $50. I happen to like this trigger. I tried it. It was a purchase, and I liked it. The trigger comes out, and there's a connector bar that slides out as well. There's the connector bar. Take that out, and there's the trigger. Take that out. Now, let's take a look at two areas where there's friction. There's friction here, and there's friction here. Why? Well, here's the trigger bar. Take a look at the trigger bar. And this is as you would face the trigger bar, so the friction is going to be here, right along this edge, and on that one point that's extending to the back. These areas can be polished. They can be polished to a mirror polish. You can polish them by hand. I happen to use a Dremel, and there's a couple of products that I use. One of the products is Flitz, and if you take your time, and you're not going to damage anything, all you're going to do is smooth out the surface and bring mirror polish. So what I'll do is I'll do a little bit of polishing off camera, bring it back, and show you those points, assemble the trigger, and then show how these mechanisms are interchangeable with one another. Camera, I've done some polishing with Flitz polish, and I did use a Dremel with a very, very soft rotating head or pad. I only polished, or I polished to perfection, or tried to polish to perfection, two areas on this fire control module. And those are the areas where there's friction. And that's going to be here, and the other place is here. Trigger mechanism, the trigger itself will slide into this spot, and the trigger bar will connect to it here, and the end of the bar will go here with the spring, and that's the area that becomes a little bit problematic, and you have to take a little time, so I'll do that off camera. However, let's take a look at the trigger bar. Okay, here's the trigger bar, and it's oriented in a way that would face you. This is the end that will fit into the trigger itself, and this end fits into the onto, I should say, the fire control mechanism, and this is where the spring is attached. So the areas that I've polished, once again, are only friction areas. So there's a little protruding nub here, and I've polished that thoroughly. And on this side, there's a flat area, and that's been polished thoroughly as well. I'm going to assemble this, show it to you what it looks like in an assembled position, and then do some assembly on the guns. Here's the fire control unit assembled with the spring in place. You can see where the long part of that spring extension fits into a groove, and underneath there's a hook. Again, I have to use some needle nose pliers to do that, bent needle nose pliers, and the other part of the trigger bar is here. It wouldn't hurt to put some gun butter or some other, one of your favorite gun greases underneath here to reduce friction even more, and it wouldn't hurt to put some on the snub either. There's a characteristic click sound when you engage the trigger on this mechanism. That's it. I haven't measured the actual pull. So let's see how this goes together. Let's take the compact frame first, and the trigger has to be moved slightly when you place this in. So you can push it down this way, slides into the back, and it fits in tight. And it's in other than the takedown lever. So let's take a look at the takedown lever, and we can put that in as well. This it's a little bit tricky because there's a flat area, and you have to use some force to get this through. The fire control mechanism is in place, the takedown lever is in place, and it's pointing directly down, which will leave this gate open so that the slide and bolt and upper assembly can fit in. Let's take the upper assembly. Here's the proper upper assembly. Here is the proper barrel. Barrel drops in. Remember, this spring, as I mentioned to you, has only a circular round end, and it will fit in quite easily. Sig Sauer is extremely safe to take down because you don't need to pull the trigger, and that's very important. To slide this back in, pull it back, lock the slide in place, move the takedown lever, I'm going to take a full size 15 round magazine, insert it, let the slide come forward. It locks all the way back. Let's make sure that it does. Let the slide come forward, and make sure I'm pointing this in a direction that's safe. I know that it's not loaded. Let's look to make sure. Right, look inside. There's nothing in there. It is not a loaded weapon, but we will still point it in a safe direction. Release the slide, point it in a safe direction, and pull the trigger. That's a very easy pull, very easy. Quick reset, that's all it takes, and another pull. All right, so let's break this down part way and make the transition to the subcompact. So I can pull the slide back, lock it in place, release the magazine, put that out of the way. Drop the takedown lever, drop down all the way. Magazine is removed. Release the lock lever, slide it forward. The upper is off. Just remove the one takedown piece. Remove the fire control module. You can just pry it out, doesn't take much. That's out. Here's the subcompact frame, grip, small grip. It works precisely the same way. It's a little bit different configuration. However, I'll move my trigger in first so I can retract it a little. Drops into the back of the frame. Make sure that it's seated in place. And then I can start to put in the takedown lever. Takedown lever is all the way through. It's in a down position. All right, let's take this. This is very important. We're going to take this slide for the subcompact, and we're going to drop the barrel in. And this is where we need to be cautious about how our spring is oriented. All right, since I didn't get directions with this because I didn't buy a kit, it was rather trial and error for me. You can see that there are two flat edges. One would think that the edge would be seated down, but it isn't. It's probably to allow clearance on the side. And on the top and bottom, there's also a small flat point. So if yours doesn't work, you can change it. And you'll notice right away because it doesn't slide back all the way and it doesn't lock in all the way. So I'm going to put this in and make sure that it's seated properly. Take the frame, slide it on, and see if it'll go all the way back. And it does. So because it goes all the way back and locks into place, I know I have the spring oriented properly. I can drop that down. Now, I have one of two choices as far as magazines. I can use the smaller magazine. It's 9mm. However, it's a 12 round magazine, and that'll drop in and it works. It goes up flush with the handle, fits flush with the handle. On the other hand, I can use the extended magazine, which I like a little bit better for the grip. And this is the extended magazine. And all this is a filler piece. So it fits in place on the magazine. And unfortunately, it doesn't lock into place. It would be nice if there was some mechanism so that it locked into place, but it doesn't lock into place. It does fit nicely. It fits relatively cleanly. However, it doesn't lock into place, and it can come loose. So let's see what happens with that. I'll take the frame, take the magazine, the extended magazine, and it locks in place. Now, let's release the slide. Okay. Make sure again that this is safe, and it is. We've checked it. I'm still going to point it in a safe direction. Right, and just put some pressure on this. And there's the click. It resets. And there's the click. Thank you for watching. I hope this has been informative. I hope that you can alter your trigger if you wish just by buffing. And I hope it helps you understand how the spring mechanism, the recoil spring mechanism, is different on the subcompact as compared to the compact.